My name is Mike Cunningham, and in this video we're going to be talking about hops and their importance in the brewing process. The hop is the flower of a certain plant, and this is what they look like. That is a whole cone hop. In the brewing process, hops are added to the wort and then they're allowed to boil. The amount of time they're boiled and the kinds of hop used and how much hops are used affect the beer in many different characteristics. There are two main types of hops: bittering hops, which as the name implies gives the hop a bitter taste or not bitter taste depending on the kind, and aromatic hops, which give the taste many different kinds of scents, which we'll talk about later. And there are many different kinds of hops, and these hops can be used in a variety of ways and in conjunction with other hops to give the beer many different styles of taste.
As I was going over the far-famed Kerry Mountains, I met with Captain Farrell, and his money he was counting. I first produced me pistol, and I then produced me rapier. Sing, stand and deliver, for I am the boldest sabre. Muster ring of a doodle and a whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
I counted out his money, it made a pretty penny. I put it in my pocket and I took it home to Jenny. She sighed and she swore she never would deceive me, but the devil take no word for it, it never can be easy. Muster ring of a doodle and a whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
I went up to my chamber, all for to take a slumber. I dreamt of gold and jewels, on sure it was no wonder. But Jenny threw me charges, and she filled them up with water, and sent for Captain Farrell to be ready for the slaughter. Wash your ring of a doodle of a da, whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
'Twas early in the morning, before I rose to trouble, up comes a man, a footman, and likewise Captain Farrell, who forced to use my pistol, for she stole away my rifle. I couldn't shoot the water, so a prisoner I was taken.
Wash your ring of a doodle of a da, whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. If anyone can aid me, 'tis my brother in the army. If I can find a station in Cork or in Killarney, and if you'll go with me, we'll go roaming through Kilkenny, and I'm sure they'll treat me better than me own the sporting Jenny. Mush your ring of a doodle of a da, whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. There's some take delight in the carriages are rolling, and others take delight in the honey and the bowling. Well, I can take delight in the juice of the barley, and courting pretty fair maids in the morning bright and early. Mush your ring of a doodle of a da, whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Mush your ring of a doodle of a da, whack ball the daddy-o, whack ball the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
The first beer we're going to look at is Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Sierra Nevada is very famous for using 100% Cascade hops. It has a very hoppy taste because of pale ale, and that's what characterizes that style of beer. This is Guinness Foreign Extra Stout. Foreign Extra Stout is different from normal Guinness because it has a different style and more hops in it. This is because this is an older beer. It's called Foreign Extra Stout because it was shipped to different countries before we had planes and refrigeration on it. So the hops in it actually act as a preservative to make the beer stop from going bad on overseas trips. This beer is special because when Prohibition hit the United States, they stopped shipping it to America. And last year they started shipping it to America for the first time since Prohibition. So it's been very popular nowadays, and they're still sticking to the same recipe they did in the early 1900s. Now we're going to try Victory's Prima Pils. Prima Pils is one of the best pilsners on the market, in my opinion. So we're going to pour it and we're going to see how it tastes. As you notice, not a lot of pilsners have strong heads, but the hops in this one actually make the head last longer. Hops provide head retention, is what that term is called. And if we smell it, it has very leafy, earthy scents. Prima Pils is different because most Pilsners don't have a lot of hop bitterness to them, and Premium Pils actually does. So we're going to get a good taste of it. And you can definitely tell that the hops are there, as you can't in a lot of Pilsners. So this one stands apart from Pilsners, and it's a very good beer for people looking to get into hoppy beers and pale ales and IPAs. So this is a good starting place for that. The next beer we have is Schlafly's American Pale Ale. American Pale Ale is a new form of beer that has only come around in recent years based off European Pale Ales. So we're going to pour it. What's special about this beer is that after it's brewed, after the wort process is in boiling, it is then run through filters with the Chinook and Cascade IPAs packed into it for 7 days, imparting a very strong hoppy flavor. The Chinook hops should give it a very spicy taste. Let's get a taste. And that's definitely true. They're very spicy and bold and bitter, as we're going from other pale ales to this American Pale Ale, which is a new style that is definitely a different taste and good for beer drinkers. This is Dogfish Head 90 Minute IPA. This beer has been called by Esquire as probably the best IPA in America. It's special because this is the first beer that Dogfish Head started the continual hopping process, meaning that at every point that they could in the brewing process they added hops. There's 3 kinds of hops in this: Amarillo, Warrior, and Centennial hops, and gives it a very hoppy smell and a very hoppy taste. Next we have Dogfish Head 90 Minute. Dogfish Head 90 Minute is special because it was the first beer that Dogfish introduced the continual hopping process to, which is a process where they add hops at any point in the stage of the brewing process that they can. So it gives it a very hoppy taste and is kind of bitter, but not that it turns people away. It is very bitter, but it's a good beer for people who are looking to get into hoppy beers and don't want to really have that really bitter taste in their mouth yet. Esquire magazine called this probably the best IPA in America right now. Now we have Weyerbacher Harvest Ale. It is a very bitter beer, but it's bitter because it uses a special process for the hops. They're put into the brewing process wet. It's called wet hopping. This happens because they take the hops almost directly from the field to the kettle where they put them into the wort. When hops are cut, they almost start to decompose immediately. So it's very essential that you move them directly in. That's why you won't find many harvest ales with wet hops nowadays. It's a new custom that has come around on the West Coast, and more brewers are starting to do it. And it gives it a very distinctive bitterness that you won't find in other beers. This is the last beer we have, and I wanted to show a beer that wasn't bitter, was not a pale ale, because all the beers we've had so far have been. And they have been different in their use of hops, but they have all been pale ales in common. This is Shiner's Double Wheat Beer. It is not a pale ale, and it doesn't have any of the bitterness that the hops would give to it. And I wanted to show this because it is an example of how hops are in all beers. And they may work in the background, and you might not even taste them, but it's essential for beers to have hops in it to be considered beer at all. This beer uses Washington Golden hops and Czech Saaz hops. Czech Saaz hops are probably some of the most famous hops in the world. They are used in all of the Bohemian beers that we have, and almost all Pilsners. The most famous Pilsner that's probably in is probably the most famous Pilsner in the world, and that's Pilsner Urquell. And here's all 7 beers that we talked about today. I just want to thank you for watching my video, and hopefully you learned something.